I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the recent news that there will be a German adaptation of BBC's Ghosts, which as a massive Ghost fan I'm really excited for and really interested in as well. So this was announced in early June and I wasn't too surprised that there is another adaptation. I wasn't expecting Germany specifically, but because it found such huge success in America with their American version, I'm not surprised that they're reaching out to other countries or other countries are interested in creating their own version of this show. Now, I'm the first to admit that I don't really know much about German television, so in terms of what the show may look like from a German humour perspective, I can't really give that much input on that, but I am really excited by the range of characters that they have introduced. When they announced it, they didn't really give too much information about the actual show. They just kind of released the main characters that they're going to be, and as expected, they are very, very similar to the UK version, but with a few small changes to, I guess, distinguish between the both as well, and maybe some parts might link with the German culture or humour a bit more than the characters that we had in the UK version or in the Americans had in the American version. As I said, I don't really know too much about German TV. The only thing I've really seen is I watched a few episodes of The Crime Scene Cleaner, which the UK adapted and created The Cleaner starring Greg Davis. So I watched a few episodes of the German version because there was a couple that I found online. And I did really enjoy it. I like the humour style. It's not too dissimilar to UK humour. Quite dark, that kind of thing. So I'm expecting to have it be more similar to the UK version than the American version was to the UK one. Because I do think American and British humour, although similar in some ways, there is quite a distinct difference. I think one thing that most people point out is that, our humour is a lot darker and more pessimistic, whereas the American humour is more optimistic. The German version seems like it's going to be more of a faithful adaptation to the UK version, at least in terms of the characters, because we got a first look at the main characters and they are very, very similar to the UK one. It's also similar in the sense of how the episodes will be structured and the series will be structured. So they're doing 6 episodes of 30 minutes each, which is exactly how the UK one did it, whereas the American version, because of the way their TV runs, they did 22 minute episodes. I think personally I prefer the longer episodes. Sometimes I feel with the American version they feel a bit short. I think things seem to be resolved a bit too quickly, but the benefit of the American one is that they do get more episodes per season, so they can perhaps have bigger overarching plot lines and they can have characters come in for half a season and then leave, whereas that doesn't really happen too much in the UK one. I think it is very much more Alison, Mike and the main ghosts and not really too much from anybody else. You have occasional bits with Barclay or with Lucy, whereas the US one has more recurring characters who feature for an episode here or there, come in and out throughout the whole season, throughout the seasons. So yeah, that's the main difference between how the episodes and seasons are structured between the UK and the US. And because they're doing, the German version's doing 6 episodes of 30 minutes each, I imagine it's going to be very similar to the UK one. It's obviously going to follow the same plot line. They kind of included the synopsis in the announcement and it's exactly the same as the UK one and the US one. Young couple inherit a mansion, they want to turn it into a hotel, main character has a near-death experience and is able to see ghosts. So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. That's the plot line, so it's going to be the same for each version, and I imagine the American version, the first episode or 2 are going to be exactly the same as the UK one, hopefully with some differences in terms of little jokes, things like that, but to set up the story you're going to have the same 2 episodes. It's just the way it's got to be, but I do hope that they add their own plot lines and have the characters maybe go in a different direction than how Alison and Mike go. So yeah, that's what I hope for it. And now the most exciting part, onto the ghosts. In terms of the counterparts in the UK to the US one, they had lots of same characters, pretty much identical ones, but also with Pat and Pete, they were exactly the same character in terms of looks and appearance. Obviously they became different once the US one developed a bit more, but the US one also introduced different characters and had ones that were completely original, whereas the German one, they are going for pretty much identical counterparts. So the character who is going to be the German Alison is called Emma. We haven't been given too much info about her. She looks very similar to Alison does, but we haven't been given any more information about who she is, what she's like. I am interested to see whether or not it goes towards like the US route where they establish more of like a career for her, or like and with Jay as well. So in the US one, Sam is a writer and Jay is a chef, whereas in the UK one we don't really see too much about Alison and Mike's careers. It's mainly just like they just have odd jobs here and there. The Mike counterpart is called Felix, and again, not much information about him either. They have a caveman / Neanderthal character called Urs, and obviously that is the Robin counterpart. Very, very similar. I imagine it's going to be pretty much identical to Robin. Again, hopefully they change it up, but he looks exactly like Robin did. The captain counterpart is a Roman soldier called Claudius. I'm actually really excited about this one. I think a Roman soldier is a really good character to have. And I was surprised initially that there wasn't one in the UK version. Obviously Romans were like conquerors, so I think it'd be an interesting dynamic of having somebody that like took over their country, and I think it's a really interesting idea, and I'm really excited to see how he plays into like with all the other characters. So I looked up when like the Roman invasion of Germany was, and Google says it was between 1 AD and 3 AD. So yeah, he's going to be a very old character, obviously because he's Roman, but I think it's, yeah, as I said, very good character to include, and yeah, I'm really excited about that. The Fanny counterpart is a German countess called Adelaide, and this I think is a very similar character to Fanny, but I feel like they've definitely like elevated her status. A countess I think is obviously quite high in nobility, higher than what Fanny would have been in the UK version. I do imagine she is going to have similar attitudes to Fanny and to the US counterpart as well. The Mary counterpart is a feminist maid called Griet. I don't know how you pronounce it. And she looks very similar to Mary. She's covered in like smoke. So I am wondering whether they're going to go down the witch burnt at the stake thing. I think that they've included feminist. I think she is going to be quite outspoken, and maybe that's a reason of why she was burnt at the stake. I did look up whether or not there were witch trials in Germany, and there was. So there was the Würzburg witch trials, which was in like the 1600s, and this was one of the biggest witch trials in Europe. Like hundreds of people, men, women and like children were burnt at the stake, and that was the method of killing witches in Germany, because that is a big like contentious point in the UK one, because witches in the UK weren't burnt at the stake, they were hanged. So yeah, even though people were burnt in the UK, it was more like to do with the Catholic Protestant Bloody Mary, she burnt people. But yes, in the German one, they were definitely burnt at the stake, and so yeah, we'll have no arguments about whether or not that actually happened in this one. But yeah, they might not go down that route. It might be like a red herring where she wasn't actually burnt at the stake. But I do feel like the fact that they pointed out that she's like a feminist maid, like being an outspoken woman would get you accused of being a witch. So I definitely think they are leading to that. The Julian counterpart is a insurance salesman called Joachim, I think it might be pronounced, how I googled it, and that's how it said it was pronounced. I think this is a really good character. I think it's a really good way of mixing it up a bit. Insurance salesman's often like sleazy, so I imagine he'll have the same kind of personality that Julian had. In the US one, they made him like a finance bro, so very similar kind of style as well. I think it would be really funny though if he sold life insurance. I just think that's a really funny joke that they could have. Maybe like I just imagine him to be a very dodgy, sleazy character, like money hungry, doesn't really care about people, just kind of cares about getting rich. So that's how I imagine him being, and I think that's a really good idea for a character, and like I said, just mixing it up a little bit. The next character I'm going to talk about is Svenny, who is a teacher, and this is the counterpart for Pat. So they have mixed this one up quite a bit more. So they have gender swapped her, so they've made her a female teacher. And I think this is a really good idea as well. So I'm imagining like maybe she died on a school trip, something like that. Again, quite horrible. And I think she looks very nice and sweet. So I imagine that's going to be like her persona, because like Pat is a really lovely character. I think maybe they might introduce like a stricter side that comes out if she's a teacher. So I think that's a really interesting character. I like that they have kind of mixed up one of the characters a bit more. And yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and I like that they have chosen Pat to do this for, because just the Pete one in the US one is just so similar to Pat. I think it's good to have a third one that kind of mixes it up. And the last character we have is the Thomas counterpart, and he is called Frederick Thorne. And I think it's interesting that he's been given a full name. None of the other characters have. And he has been described as a love-hungry poet. So very, very similar to Thomas. I like that they've done like Thorne, so they're definitely, I think he's going to be very, very similar to Thomas. I did Google whether Frederick Thorne was a real person, because I thought it was quite odd that they gave him a full name, whereas they haven't done that with any of the others. And I thought that maybe he was a real poet, but he's not. Frederick Thorne is actually the name of a German physicist, but not a poet. So I definitely think with this character they are going to have a very similar dynamic to what they had with Thomas, like pining after Emma. The background as well that we've seen just in this one picture is very similar to the UK one as well. They've gone for like the purpley theme, which we have in like the UK like promo ones, and the house looks a lot more like run down than the US one. So they're definitely following that plot of it being like a really big burden to have this mansion, and it's like going to cause trouble for them. Because with the US one, even though there are structural issues and things that happen to the house, it's a lot nicer looking. It's a lot cleaner. They've definitely like beautified it a bit, whereas the UK one, yes, it's a lovely house, but they really emphasise how many more troubles they have, and it's only really fixed when they get in a corporation to like fix it, which is a shame. But I definitely feel like we're going to have similar kind of plot with the house just being very difficult to maintain. Especially for people who, if it's similar to the UK one, don't have much money and are trying to like DIY it all. I think it is interesting that there's no like Kitty or Humphrey counterpart. There are less characters here than in both the UK one and the US one. Obviously, this doesn't mean that this is all the characters they're ever going to have. They might introduce them, they might still be developing it. Like they haven't made the show yet, it's still in development, so there might be more characters that they introduce, or maybe they feel like, oh, we haven't got quite enough once they start doing like the pilots. So yeah, there could be more characters introduced, but maybe they'll have just more of a tight-knit group, which I personally think works a lot better. One of the things I prefer about the UK one over the US one is I feel like the characters, even though they argue a lot more than they do in the UK one, and the US one, and they seem to get on each other's nerves a bit more, they do feel more like a family. They feel very close and connected to each other. Whereas to me in the US one, they've gone for much more like pairing off relationships and stuff, and it feels a bit more disjointed to me personally. I know people like the relationshipy stuff. Personally for me, I like the very like heartwarming family like aspect to the UK one. Obviously there are some relations between the characters, but it's very much a one-off and not like a major plot line. I am really interested to see how the different characters will develop throughout the show, how they'll like change the characters up a little bit, which I do hope they do, because I am really excited to watch it, and it would be nice if they do mix it up a bit. But I do think that if any one out of the German one or the US one were to copy the UK one exactly, it's going to be the German one, because they are marketing it to potentially like different language speakers. Like it was going to be geared towards German speakers who may only primarily speak German, so have not been able to watch the UK one or the US one, whereas a lot of people in America had seen the British one already. So yes, that is pretty much all the information we've been given on the German Ghosts. There's no like word of when it's going to be released or any like specific plot lines at all, or we haven't even seen the house yet, so I'm really interested to see what the house looks like. And again, like I said, I'm not too familiar with German humour, but I think it is going to be similar to the UK one, more so than the US one is similar to the UK one. But yeah, I'm very excited, and I think they've got a wide range of characters from all different points in history. So yeah, I think I'm very excited, like I said, about the Roman soldier. I think that's a really good change. I understand that it would have been difficult to have a direct captain like counterpart, if that makes sense. So I think having the Roman soldier is a good like change while still keeping that kind of like army character, because I do think that plays quite well in in both versions, the US one and the UK one. So Roman soldier, very happy with. I think that's a really good choice, and it's one character that I would have really liked to see in the UK one as well. And yeah, I think all the characters sound really good. I like that they've kept them fairly similar, but they have mixed them up in different ways. Robin, I think, is the one that is going to be the most similar, or Thomas. I think those two are the ones we're going to see a lot of similarities with. And I think Mary and her German counterpart are going to be similar, but I think the German one is going to be more outspoken, a bit louder, because Mary is quite like inward. I think, the German one's going to be a bit more outspoken, maybe a bit more open about what happened to her. Maybe not, because it is horrific, so I would understand if nobody wants to talk about that. But yeah, I am very excited, and I will update you when the first episode comes out, when we get a trailer. I can't wait to see it, and I'm really excited there's going to be more ghosts, because I missed the UK one so much, and yeah, I'm so excited for it. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, it really helps the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on the German characters that they're going to have. And subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with the German ghost, because I will make videos about that. And yeah, I'll have some more videos out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!